Hey folks, I'm off today, so that's why I'm doing this. And I do want to apologize if this goes off prematurely. But I also wanted to talk about something. Now, this past weekend, in case some of you don't know, the live action adaptation of Jem and the Holograms, the live action film adaptation that is, was released in theaters. And is it me, or does it not surprise people that this live action adaptation of Jem, when the first trailer came out around May or something like that, did it not surprise anybody that trailer after trailer, despite how much they try to pass it off and say, okay, this is Jem, look, we have synergy, but oh, it's not the synergy you know, and all that. Does it not surprise anybody that it had one of the worst box office openings probably of all time? Does it not surprise anybody? Hold on for a sec. Again though, does it not surprise anybody? I mean, quite frankly, it shouldn't. Because when you think about it, this was doomed from the get-go. It was. And there's a lot of movies in history, either the original movies, adaptations of books, comics, that pretty much when you see them, hold on for a sec. That pretty much when you see them, you see the trailer for them. You see how they're being advertised, they're being marketed. That pretty much you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that movie's going to bomb. A few months ago when Fantastic Four came out, a lot of people pretty much, when they saw the trailer, and even before that, when they heard about how the casting was going to go, and how they were going to probably change things up a little bit, to fit into what they wanted, because this Fantastic Four was based in the Ultimate Universe of Marvel. Did it not surprise anybody that it got the box office treatment that it did? No. True, it stayed in the top 5 for a little bit, but not very long. And even though it was in the top 5, it was still criticized very badly. True, it didn't have a bad box office weekend when it debuted, but still, to balance that out, you had a whole bunch of critics and people just slamming the Fantastic Four movie and basically saying that this is the third strike, they're out. So, does it not surprise anybody that when Jem got her first movie trailer out back in May, and then that second one about a few months ago, does it not surprise people that Jem and the Holograms tanked this past weekend in probably one of the worst box office openings of all time? Does it not surprise people? Because it doesn't surprise me. I mean, you're loosely basing a movie off this at what, $5 million? That's chump change. I said this when I saw the trailer. I said this numerous times. That with that budget, they weren't going to make back. I'd be surprised if they would make back what they spent, if not more. I think I said something like that, and I'm sure everybody else did. But they didn't make that back in the box office opening. It's like the people behind it, who, by the way, did the Justin Bieber documentary pick, or concert pick, did G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra, of all things, or not Rise of Cobra, yeah, Rise of Cobra and G.I. Joe Retaliation, maybe not the best G.I. Joe live action adapted movies, but decent enough to where people pretty much said, yes, that's G.I. Joe. Like I said, pretty much when people said, yes, that's G.I. Joe. And even the Transformer films, despite how you feel about Michael Bay, at least are Transformers. You see the Transformers. It's not just a name and it's just the humans. And you barely see anything resembling the show or resembling the franchise. You know it's Transformers. Same with G.I. Joe. And yet, the person that did Retaliation, I think even helped on Rise of Cobra, worked on the freaking Gem movie, and he doesn't have the wisdom, he doesn't have the knowledge to say, oh, we need to make this as what people saw before. We need to have misfits. We need to have, we need to have the story somewhat similar to what fans are used to. It's all right to take liberties here and there and loosely adapt things and all that. But most of the time, when these things are loosely adapted or whatever, at least they stay true to how the original story or the original origin came about for that franchise, for those characters. At least it stays true to that. It doesn't just say, oh, well, here's Jim. Whee! Toss it out the window, we're going to go our direction. No. You don't do that. You don't do that. And they wonder why it bombed at the box office. It's appropriate that Creepy, the long-haired creepy guy in Chubby Fulu, TLHCG, in the second episode of the Gem retrospective, it's appropriate that they talked about the Starbright three-parter. It's appropriate. You know why? Because it showed a comparison of how a movie should be done correctly and how a movie is done wrong. What happens when you have the wrong person behind a movie and the right person behind a movie? To me, it's very appropriate that I saw it this weekend. It's very appropriate I saw that today, I should say. And the thing is, when you have a franchise like Gem and the Holograms, you expect it to be good. You expect it to be true to its source material. Have some kind of connection to the original origin. You don't flat out have the female version of the villain, Erica Raymond, in the movie, which is the female version of Eric Raymond. You don't have her, along with Rio, or anybody else, know that Jerica and Gem are the same person. No! The mystique that made the show special, that made that franchise special, is that dual identity deal. Was the conflict that Jerica Benton, had when trying to figure out whether she should or not, should she or shouldn't she tell Rio she's Gem and Jerica, that she's one and the same. Should she do it? That's, despite how people feel, some people might feel about it, that's what was one of the main appeals about it. The fact that you didn't know whether or not she was going to finally tell the right people. People that she could trust. Now I know I came out here and I talked about the reasons why they went in that direction of her never telling Rio she's one and the same. But the point is, you don't do a loose adaptation of a franchise, of a beloved franchise like Gem and the Holograms, and pretty much say, okay, everybody, including the villain, is going to know who she is right off the bat. They're going to know that she's both one and the same right off the bat. You don't do that. You don't. You don't do that. You try to keep it as true to the original origins as you can. Again, people may have their differences about all the Transformer movies and the 2 G.I. Joe movies, possible third one coming. They might have their differences about it, but guess what? At least they stay true to what made Transformers what it is, in a sense. They change things up a little bit, but they stay true to the origin, in a sense. They stay true to what was the core, what made Transformers, what made G.I. Joe what they were then and now. They didn't switch things up. And they wonder, the director, the people behind it, wonder why people are angry at them now. They wonder why they're getting death threats. They wonder and question all this. They try to compensate it. Try to wonder why. Maybe it's because you didn't stay true to the original source material in some way. Let's be honest here. Let's be flat out honest here. This is not a Justin Bieber Never Say Never concert movie. This is not Spice World. This is not a parody of this is not Josie and the Pussycats, even though a lot of people have said that Josie and the Pussycats, the reason, despite how some people felt about it, looking back now, is probably the best way to adapt something appropriately, is because, you know, they make fun of that situation, they have fun with it, and in a sense it's kind of a little bit of a parody, but not much. The point is, this is nothing like it. True, you could have Synergy, but what? Synergy goes from a big computer, about this size, if not bigger, to a tiny little robot that does little hologram projections. That's it? No. No. What made Jem and the Holograms good was what made it appealing, is what they had. There was a bunch of stories in Jem, the series, the animated series, that could easily been adapted. They could have easily took the first 5 episodes, the Jem movie pilot, if you will, and they could have adapted that appropriately onto the big screen. But they didn't do that. They have other stories like the Starbright deal, the Talent Search, all these other story arcs that were in the series, they could easily adapt, or could have easily adapted. But they didn't. And you know what's funny about this? Even though I never watched Jem as a child that much, and when I did, I watched it because there was nothing else on, and either it was raining or something like that, and I kind of liked it. Looking back on it, I do have fond respect for it. Because I got introduced to it by my older sister, but the point is, the one thing that really makes a lot of the fan base mad, the one thing that really gets people ticked off, gets their ire up, even after the movie's been released and has proven to be the worst proven to have the worst box office opening probably in recent memory, if not of all time, is the fact that a lot of these fans know that the reason this bombed is behind the scenes it was missing one core element, and that was the creator, Christy Marx. If Christy Marx was on board, there is no doubt she would have let them know that if you're going to do Jem, you got to do it the way fans know it. If you're going to modernize it, fine, but keep it true to its origins. Don't try to change it up because you want this, you want that. It doesn't work. Does not work. Now, I haven't seen the movie yet, but from what I've read online, from what people have said, the movie has literally just tanked in a way that was obviously expected. Now, true, some people try to say there are some positives. Okay, fine, there might be, but the negatives way outweigh the positives. There's no doubt about it. They way outweigh them. What I think happened here is they saw that they were on a roll with all these Hasbro properties being adapted into live-action films, and if not in a year or two, animated form with My Little Pony. They knew they had to get Jem out. Because you know why? Hasbro knew they had to get Jem out real quickly. You know why? Because their focus is going to be on MLP. There is a... What is it? There is a Regal movie theater in Rochester, New York. Someone posted this online. Rochester, New York already has a big old banner hanging from the ceiling saying My Little Pony the movie, The Magic Begins in 2017. And it's pretty much in the style and indicating through that banner that it's going to be based off Friendship is Magic. But the point is, if Hasbro is in a hurry to get Jem out so they can focus on MLP, maybe they should have waited on Jem. Maybe they should have waited on Jem. Maybe they should have said, you know what, let's focus on MLP, make it as good as it's going to be, get it out in the year we're going to plan it, and then do gym. I guarantee you, if they would have focused, if they would have done it correctly, to where gym would have been put on the back burner until the appropriate time, instead of rushing it out, because yes, I will say this, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for it, fans wanted a gym movie, probably wanted a gym movie because you had Transformers and G.I. Joe, and now the question was, where's Jim? You know, it would have been better off if they would have waited on it. Better off if they would have waited. Focus your efforts on My Little Pony if that's where you're going, and then do Jim. Or at least try to organize it to where you can balance both out. Here's the thing. You know, Gem may have not have been as big as Transformers and G.I. Joe, but it was still one of the founding shows that put Hasbro on the map. It was still one of the big three, if not one of the big four. As a matter of fact, when it came out, it was more popular and more loved than Generation 1 of My Little Pony. And that's a fact. But the thing is, if you're going to adapt something like it, you need to make sure you adapt it correctly, and you make sure you have every core ingredient behind the scenes, including the creator. You don't shove the creator out and say, oh, we'll be able to do Gem correctly. Don't worry, we'll do Gem justice. Bullshit. You didn't do Gem justice, you did her an injustice. And everybody watching this knows that. So if I'm Christy Marks, and I know she's going to try to put on a positive face in light of all this. If I'm Christy Marks, I talk to Hasbro. I say, look, you want to get a Gem movie done? That's fine. Let's forget this one happened. Let's reboot it and do it the way it should be done and go from there. Because again, you could set it in modern times, there's no doubt about it, as long as you stay true to the origin. That's what you do. You don't try to make it another Spice Girls, another Pitch Perfect, Justin Bieber, whatever kind of movie. You don't do that. You do it the right way. You do it the right way, and you'll see that if you do it the right way, things become positive. Because when you have something like this, and it has 3 seasons worth of material that you can work with, a bunch of characters you can slowly integrate into its universe. If you do a series, if you decide someday, hey, let's reboot it and do it right and do a series of movies, you know, a franchise of movies out of it. If it's done right, you have a whole material of stuff you can work there out of 3 seasons worth. You have 3 seasons worth of stuff you can work with. But you don't do that. You don't. You kill it. You basically try to kill it. It ain't gonna die. You see what's gonna happen now is a lot of fans are gonna want to see a Gem movie, are still gonna want to see a Gem movie, but they're gonna want to see the right, correct Gem movie. And I'm not gonna be surprised. And Christy Marks, I know she's probably watching, maybe she is, maybe she's not. She needs to get on the ball, call Hasbro up, call Universal up, call Paramount up, whoever, and say, let's do the Gem movie the correct way. Let's not do it in a way that just makes it another generic all-girl, pitch-perfect like movie. No. You leave those alone. Those are their own things. You focus on what made Gem what it is. You get a new directing crew. If you want to bring back the cast of this movie, that's fine. But do it in a way that makes more sense. As a matter of fact, a lot of people even pointed this out. It's like this movie is more appropriate for a Disney Channel original movie than anything else. Some have even said it's Josie and the Pussycats 2.0, except Josie and the Pussycats knew how to do it right.